Thank everyone for coming here this morning. I am Dr. Daniel Korn. My pronouns are he, him. As a point of visual access, I'm a 30-year-old white man with a trimmed dark beard and short brown hair. Today I'm wearing blue jeans and a gray t-shirt with a little bird on it. Thank you, yes. Today I want to talk about translation and understanding. In so many areas of the world, we seek to find out the true way that something works, and we hope to find the most accurate way to write down what we know so that others may be able to understand us. But is such a thing even possible? Can one effectively write down information about very complex ideas? Things like spiritual understanding, like how nature works in some fundamental way, and like how people can cope with an ever-changing world. Obviously, this isn't an easy thing to accomplish. Many problems in our world today come from a lack of understanding and an inability to get across what we want to say. But I want to present the case for how some ideas are able to be echoed across the barriers of time and language, and the possibility and capability that we all have for understanding. Today, I want to discuss how we can gain understanding through context. The context of why a work was written, the context of when the person who said it lived, and the context of the understanding that others have reached when faced with the same issues in text. I seek to expand our view beyond just a single reader in a text as an isolated island, and instead transform reading and understanding into an exercise of empathy and community. To help me explore this topic this morning, I want to discuss Taoism. Taoism is a long-practiced spiritual and philosophical tradition that is deeply skeptical of the abilities of language. It views language as being fundamentally incapable of conveying important thoughts. I want to make a disclaimer here. Taoism is an ongoing tradition which is still practiced in many areas of the world, which I did not grow up in. I discovered its ideas while in grad school through the work of novelist and poet Ursula K. Le Guin's translations, who I will be leveraging heavily this morning. But I find the teachings of Taoism to be very interesting, and I think it has many ideas which are as relevant today as when it was written. So with that out of the way, the primary work of the Taoist canon and my main focus of discussion today will be the Tao Te Ching, which you can see about 10 copies of right there. The Tao Te Ching is a collection of 81 poems written approximately 2,500 years ago in classical Chinese, a now dead language which serves as the root for many current Asian languages, by Lao Tzu, whose name roughly translates to the old sage or the wise old man. Discussing Taoism is a bit complicated because Taoism itself doesn't really agree with direct methods of explanation. As Lao Tzu says in the Tao Te Ching, wise men do not need to argue things with words. Unfortunately, apparently I'm not wise, so you're stuck with me using words today. So what do Taoists believe? Taoism is founded on the titular idea of the Tao. The word Tao or Tao broadly translates to the way, but with a subtle complex meaning. It means the way to go, as in a road or path one may travel along, but at the same time also means the way things are, as in nature, the laws of physics, the inner workings of the universe. The Tao means both at once. It is the order of the universe, the underlying life force which drives all things to happen, and it is the natural flow of events, the road we each must tread as living beings, who must be born, must stay warm, must eat, must reproduce, and must all eventually die. Lao Tzu is deeply skeptical of words to communicate anything meaningful about the Tao, and more broadly is cautious of the way words can be used to present and twist ideas, and of people who use words to try to get what they want. To really drive home this point, Lao Tzu opens the Tao Te Ching with the following 12 characters, which when very literally translated can be said as follows. The Tao which can be Taoed is not the real Tao. The name which can be named is not the real name. So that's incredibly simple and straightforward, obviously. More metaphorically translated, these 12 characters can be taken to mean the Tao, the way of the world works, which you can understand directly is not the true Tao, is not the way things actually are. The names which we use to call objects are not their true names, i.e. the name and the object are different. So from its first words, Taoism aims to present a case that our understanding and our individual perceptions are flawed, and really wants to drive home the fallibility of how narrow one individual sees the world, and of how words are inadequate vehicles of meaning of its complexity. Like I said up front, I think all works really can't be understood without their context, so I want to take the time to go into a bit of history of where and when Lao Tzu and Taoism sprang from, and give some background on these ideas. Now, the Tao Te Ching was written around the 4th century BCE in what was now known as the Henan province of China. So in the 7th century BCE, that is 300 years before this book was written, the Zhou Empire of China began a steady, continuous decline. Various defeats and internal disputes led to law and order becoming less and less centralized. Smaller states were rising in power and prominence. Over the course of hundreds of years of these kind of squabbles and political shifts, it led to the eventual shattering of what was once a large, politically stable, contiguous empire into individual regions all governing themselves and fighting each other, until finally all the centralized order was collapsed and gone, and each state, for all intents and purposes, was an isolated island, and all that bound the people of the empire together had been lost. This is now referred to the Warring States period of China, where dozens of small independent powers engaged in hundreds of wars. Wars for conquest, wars for establishing their own power, wars for reprisal of past wrongs, and oftentimes war purely for their own survival in such a chaotic world. To put it bluntly, this was an extremely bad time for the average citizen of the region. The prolonged conflict resulted in the burning of crops, trade stopping, the destruction of whole families, and the loss of millions of lives, not only of soldiers, but of the common people. To quote Chinese scholar Holmes H. Welch, "War led to war, treachery led to treachery. Where armies marched to and fro, thorn and brambles grew." It might seem strange that the highly philosophical Taoism would grow out of such turmoil and conflict, but Taoism itself was actually Lao Tzu's answers to the pressing questions of the time. What could create a world with so much fighting? How was an empire that was recently one of unified peace, stability, and plenty become a land of endless suffering and conflict? Lao Tzu tackles this question many times directly in the Tao Te Ching. To quote, "A Taoist wouldn't advise a ruler to use force of arms for conquest. That tactic always backfires. Where the armies marched grow thorn and thistle. After the war come the bad harvest. Good leaders prosper, that's all, not presuming on their victory. They prosper without boasting, without domineering, without arrogance. They prosper because they can't help it. They prosper without violence." So, what is the diagnosis? In Lao Tzu's opinion, what is wrong with people? Why are they so prone to conflict? In searching out a source of the decline and suffering of the people around him, Lao Tzu comes upon some unusual answers, especially by our Western standards. Lao Tzu finds the cause of suffering to be ideology itself, the way our minds and our perceptions can be so easily constructed and reinforced by the world around us, that it is so easy for one person to get an idea in our head that the world has a right way of being. This fact of itself is inexorably linked with suffering. Lao Tzu says as follows, "Everyone on earth knowing that beauty is beautiful makes ugliness. Everybody knowing that goodness is good makes wickedness." In this, he lays out a claim that the only way negative virtues can arise in the world is through a shared collective understanding of positive virtues. Continuing from Lao Tzu, when you fill a bowl to its edge, it must spill over. When you over-sharpen a blade, you blunt it. When you fill your house with gold and jade, you attract thieves who steal it. In this way, Lao Tzu presents a world where when we work towards a goal and hope to fix the world in some way or secure ourselves, we actually cause what we least want to happen to manifest. Remember that within Taoism, the first 12 characters establish that the Tao, the way the universe works, is unknowable to us. It's the most fundamental point of the Taoist faith. So when we humans grasp after our desires, instead of acting as a salve for the problems we face, all of the energy spent plotting, planning, and scheming to try to shape the world to how we think it should be only exacerbate the original problem we tried to solve. Lao Tzu again. Being and non-being arise together. Hard and easy complete one another. Long and short shape each other. According to Taoism, what may appear on the surface to be two competing separate goals are often actually one unified whole, which, when one side is pulled, leads to the inevitable amplification of the other. Left unchecked, these impulses to fix and control the world can easily trap us in endless cycles. It can lead us to cycles of temptation, cycles of addiction, cycles of abuse, cycles of depression, cycles of feelings of never enoughness, and cycles of hundreds of years of endless conflict of neighbors that no one remembers the beginning of and no one can imagine an end to. So, given all that, what is the solution? Is there any way that we can understand the Tao and break these cycles of suffering? If, as Lao Tzu claims, the way the world works is forever ineffable, words fail to communicate these complex topics, what are we left with? To quote again, "To know without knowing is best. Not knowing without knowing is sick. To be sick of sickness is the only cure. The wise aren't sick, they're sick of sickness." So that's a little bit hard to parse, but essentially, Lao Tzu says that we all have the potential for wisdom, but the best way to go about the world is to work intuitively, to know without knowing, but that's not always possible. So to be wise and to avoid suffering of our own ignorance, we must be sick of the sickness of our not understanding. We must endlessly be in a process of vigilance and refining of our own knowledge of the world, and take it upon ourselves to work on the creeping potential of desires and try to uncover the invisible ideologies which endlessly cloud our judgment and lead us into these negative cycles. And for the large decisions, the ones we all face in our lives and will inevitably drive our internal desires into conflict, Lao Tzu challenges us to wei wu wei, or do not do, or more liberally translated, to choose a path of inaction. This simple phrase, wei wu wei, do not do, is repeated over and over again throughout the Tao Te Ching, which is quite a short work. It advocates for choosing inaction as a radical form of pacifism to heal the world. It advocates for choosing the passive choice that often appears invisible to us, the choice to not continue cycles of suffering, the choice to press pause on the broken patterns around us, the choice to say no to extra, no to more money, no to more status, to be content with the right here and right now, the choice to not strike another in retaliation for an ancient blood feud. To go back to understanding, one of the most interesting things about the Tao Te Ching is that it's often described as untranslatable. I think it's fundamentally an issue that the text itself is ununderstandable. The text aims to be minimalist. More often than not, crucial pieces of information are absent from each poem, leaving its true meaning forever ambiguous. This comes from a desire to strip away as much cultural baggage as possible, leaving only the barest elements of an idea behind. But in this ambiguity, I think it is itself Lao Tzu's point. We imagine that for something to be meaningful and understood, we need to be explicit. But this explicitness inevitably demands more explicitness and more explicitness. and often will fall into a mire of minutiae and sophistry. Lao Tzu instead aims to create meaning from the nebulous. To quote the Tao Te Ching, hollowed out clay makes a pot. Where the pot's not is where it's most useful. I think one of the best aspects of Chinese philosophy, and ongoing to this day, is the practice of commentary. In this practice, when scholars study these works, they record their own personal interpretations and reflection upon its meaning, and save them for the next generation. These interpretations are then used as a jumping off point for the future commentaries which are written, which in turn are then also saved for the next generation. This practice turns understanding from an isolated island where one individual is left alone to grapple with a raw text into a vast distributed community activity, which goes on for millennia. A process of a text being refined, a myriad of interpretations available to draw upon, new meanings being discovered all the time, and surprising connections between events of long ago and events right now being able to be found. This gives us a chance to learn empathy for the viewpoints of others and to re-examine our own biases and the assumptions that are given to us by our present. So pulling out back to translation, the word rendering in art refers to the process of filling in details. Things like taking some sheet music and making a song in the world, or taking a rough sketch and turning it into a beautiful watercolor painting. This is the process of adding in the details to the artwork. This word, to render, is also used by translators in the discussion of their craft. In the act of translation and commentary, every person takes the rough clay, the vagaries of words and language, and imparts their own details onto them. They must give explanations, and they're forced to give them from their own viewpoints. Oftentimes, they're able to take special interest in areas where they have their most personal expertise, areas such as history, poetry, linguistics, or spirituality. Each commentary and translation serves in some small way as a reflection of a core original meaning. And this way, that these translations of the Taoist text can guide us through the process of discovery as if we're feeling a shape of an object in total darkness. Each translation can act as another touch point to make sense of the whole. I want to conclude this morning with another quote from Lao Tzu. My words are easy to understand, easy to practice. I hope that some of these ideas I presented to you about understanding our connection to the past and building a community around discovering shared meaning has resonated with you. I want to invite everyone here today to participate in a little bit of this practice themselves. Around this room, in the lobby, in the chapel, there are 6 different chapters of the Tao Te Ching, each with a transliteration from classical Chinese and 6 translators' different renderings of each text. As a starting point, when we go into this activity, I wanted you to think of these as a spot the difference puzzle, where you find one specific word or phrase and try to see how it is rendered by each different translator. I'm hoping to take about 15 minutes to go through this exercise. We're going to move our bodies as we're able and try to practice some understanding. Will John B. and Tim inspire us with some blues music to help us give us something to think about during this time. Also during this time, the ushers will be collecting this week's offering. So if you find First Unitarian to be a valuable space to create collective meaning and shared understanding of each other, I invite you to please give generously. So please rise as you're able, or raise your hand, and I'll give you a printed copy of some of this material that is available on each of these posters. And also this material will be shared virtually on Zoom by Jeff, which I appreciate a lot. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you all enjoy.
sound is.
I also like that sort of music too, that that's all
Yep, yep, me too. Okay, okay.
So that piece of paper there that just indented it a little bit.
It's because the pick guard has a rattle to it, so I'm just trying to quiet it down.
I won't tell you.
How about we'll do It's a Sin to Be Rich, we'll do it in E and a shuffle.
Hello. We're gonna try to gather in about 5
It's a sin
minutes
to
back
be
into the
rich,
sanctuary. Thank
but
you.
a low down shame to be poor. It's a sin to be rich, but a low down shame to be poor. A rich man got no way to get to heaven, poor man got a hard way to go. I don't wanna be rich, just wanna stay between rich and poor. that trumpet. I wanna be there when it blows. He gonna play that trumpet. Wanna be on your shoulder. Wanna be there when it blows. That's when I know this tide's so. That's for sure.
Hi, I'm Reverend Abby Tennis, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Reverend Alexandre da Silva Soto, and my pronouns are they, them, and theirs.
And we are the ministers of the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where it is our mission to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world. We're so glad you watched this video, and we hope that its message connects with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for Zoom services Sunday morning at 11 a.m. or come in person at 2125 Chestnut Street, Center City, Philadelphia.
Whether you join in person or online, in these services you'll hear messages like you just heard. You'll get a chance to sing together, pray together, and even greet one another in coffee hour afterwards, whether you're brand new or a longtime member.
You can always find a Zoom link to our services and more about what to expect on Sunday mornings on our website, philauu.org. The link is below.
If you are connecting with this message and feel moved to give to the mission of this congregation, we invite you to click on the link below again and follow the prompts to give, or send a text message to 215-709-5095. And again, follow the prompts.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, please share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.
See you soon.